When did homeownership turn into a fight against radioactive nightmares? Join me as I confront a slick salesman and uncover the shocking truth about my dream house. As I stood in my backyard, grappling with the news that I had unwittingly cultivated a subterranean radioactive waste facility, my mind raced. Excitement fizzled like flat soda, bubbling upward only to deflate in a horrifying rush of disbelief. Radioactive material, I whispered, tasting the words like sour grapes, letting them roll around my tongue as if saying it enough would turn the entire miasma of doom into delicate fairy dust instead. I whipped around to face my charmingly tragic house, the love of my life morphing into a wildly expensive nightmare. My dreams of weekend barbecues with laughter swirling around homemade sides danced irreverently into a black hole where only that eerie glow and the ominous label danger seemed to exist. What had I done to deserve this twilight zone of woes? Purchasing a house was supposed to be an adventure, not an episode of nuclear nightmares, ripped from the headlines. It was then that my mind flickered back to Victor Reynolds, the slick, silver-haired snake oil salesman who sold me this home with a smile that could charm a bear. I could practically hear the gleeful cackle of his enchanted wallet, overflowing from the sale of a property he clearly knew was tainted. Heart-pounding with indignation, I could imagine him lounging on a beach somewhere, sipping a frostily unqualified drink while occasionally throwing his head back in laughter, thinking of little old Jordan in a panic over green glows. "Good luck with that," he'd quip, slapping a happy homeowner sticker on a nuke sign. Oh, the irony. I could just picture him in his snazzy suit, an emblem of trustworthiness draped over a pit of complete and utter treachery. Did he think he could hide behind his dollar bills and beautifully crafted deception? Not on my watch. In my swirling storm of righteous fury, I snapped to attention. It was time to channel that energy into action. And boy did I have an impressive arsenal of tantrums stored up. I shot over to Sam Rivera's house, my easygoing neighbor who had a penchant for handling chaos with a beer in one hand and a friendly grin on his face. His flannel attire screamed, laid-back hero. And right now, I desperately needed a hero who could help me navigate the murky waters of this absurd situation. I banged on his door with such zest that I half expected it to splinter. When he finally opened it, bleary-eyed and messy-haired, I launched into an animated tirade about nuclear waste, screaming like I had just stepped on a Lego while also pulling him into my tale of doom. "You won't believe the treasure I found in my backyard," I exclaimed, thrusting my finger toward the spot where the glow pierced through the earth. Sam, ever the good sport, chuckled nervously, caught a hint of my gravity, and went pale. With a sip from his trusty thermos that probably held a suspicious concoction stronger than coffee, Sam turned to me and said, "You know, I thought you were joking, but this is like big, real big. Have you considered reaching out to a lawyer?" His brow furrowed, making me realize he had gone from bemused buddy to very serious ally in a matter of seconds. "Do you know what that means? You could become a out-of-this-world environmental crusader. You'll take him down, Jordan. Think of the headlines. Local woman battles bankster for nuked yard." I could practically hear the news anchor's voice twinkling with joy at my misfortune. I felt a rush of adrenaline course through me as I pictured myself, cape fluttering, triumphantly leading rallies of outraged citizens wielding signs that read, "Victor Reynolds, get out." Could I truly be the hero that my pitiful, contaminated plot needed? And suddenly, it hit me. I would be that avenging angel. I hopped from foot to foot, reinvigorated, ready to take bold action against the man's villainy. Armed with my phone in hand and a dose of righteous indignation from Sam, who was now offering to rally the whole neighborhood, I launched into a social media frenzy that could only be described as a digital war cry. "Help! I've discovered radioactive waste in my yard. What have it done? Nuclear backyard." Every post, every comment, fueling my fiery determination to reclaim what was rightfully mine. And by mine, I meant my sanity, my garden dreams, and perhaps a fair share of a reckoning for Victor Reynolds. The floodgates opened, as neighbors rallied to share their own tales of real estate misfits and absurd contractor disasters. Each tweet and comment piled on top of my rising wave of motivation, affirming that I was not alone in this fight. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with strokes of red and orange, I transformed my panic into passionate purpose. The yards around me started buzzing with whispers of the backyard glow, the fabulous feature that one never expected to find at a welcome party for new homeowners. Joined by Sam, who was now armed with a cooler full of drinks, we rallied our fellow neighbors to create a plan that would make Victor's silver lining turn into a tarnished debacle. I could already envision our united front, storming the city council armed with months of research and glowing protest signs. Suddenly, defeating a banker worm didn't seem impossible at all, no longer a hopeless activity for the humorless. The spectacle ahead promised triumph, exposure, and just maybe, a sweet taste of justice on the other side of this absurd journey. What better way to kick off my new homeowner experience than hosting a neighborhood-wide stampede against the man who tried to rip us off? Here's to absurdity and poetic justice. What fresh madness awaits me next? Fired up and fueled by the type of indignation that would make a gladiator applaud, I decided that no smooth-talking, well-tailored banker was going to derail my adventure into homeownership. The mission, clear as day, had evolved into Operation Expose Victor. With my fellow neighbors rallied and a community Google Doc tracking all our grievances, growing faster than a weed in a neglected garden, I could practically hear the choir of justice humming a tuneful anthem in the background. There was power in numbers, and boy, did we have numbers. Armed with hashtags that would make even the trendiest influencers envious, my phone buzzed incessantly with notifications, and it felt like I was hollering at a packed auditorium. You won't believe what this charlatan pulled on yours truly. On the adventure front, Sam and I transformed into the unexpected dynamic duo of well-meaning strife. He became my tireless researcher, delving deep into the absurdity of property disclosure laws while I rallied our neighbors for moral support. It was like we were prepping for a mini-revolution, complete with late-night brainstorming sessions fueled by pizza and a suspiciously potent concoction in that trusty thermos of his. You know what would really make a statement? I half-joked. A neighborhood meeting at the very spot where black light meets reality. We'll call it the Nuclear Neighborhood Bonanza. Sam almost snorted his drink through his nose at that, and it fueled my belief that we were onto something wonderfully ridiculous. Finally, the day arrived. The sun hovered over our backyard like a reluctant spotlight on the world's most absurd stage. Neighbors streamed over as I set up chairs and hastily chalked up an agenda on the twinkling whiteboard I grabbed from my porch. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, and laughter intermingled with the genuine outrage that seethed beneath searching conversations. "We should have brought popcorn," someone shouted between chuckles. "Next time, bring a banner. Welcome to the Gulf of Uranium," another chimed in with a smirk, and that laughter surged like waves before crashing into resolute determination. It wasn't just my battle, it was our battle now, bubbling with camaraderie and a united front that could rattle even the shiniest of suits. But beneath all this energy loomed the inevitable specter of confrontation. "What if he actually shows up?" someone asked nervously, and I caught the anxious glances bouncing between my neighbors. After all, Victor's charm was notorious. How could a mere collection of ordinary citizens stand against his smooth twinkle and polished eye? With a gleam of defiance swarming in my chest, I declared, "If he shows up, we will drag him into the radioactive dimension of angry homeowners. And if he spins his lies, well, we'll just raise our nuclear waste. No sale. Signs higher." If Victor Reynolds dared to peer through my picket fence today, he would surely find far more than just exasperated homebuyers. He might find a community hungry for retribution. My heartbeat echoed loud enough to drown out the doubts swirling around us. The winds shifted as the appointed hour crept forward, and the palpable sense of suspense thickened in the air. Just as I preemptively prepared myself for whatever absurdity Victor might conjure, an unfamiliar car rolled into our cul-de-sac, polished and glinting like a predator's eye. Gasps rippled through the crowd as they pointed, wide-eyed, at the unmistakably smooth silhouette of Victor Reynolds stepping out, his catchphrase of charm plastered on his face. "Oh, this isn't happening," I hissed under my breath, fingers tightening around my Nuclear Neighborhood Bonanza sign as if it were a talisman. He seemed oblivious to the growing crowd encircling him and marched on with self-assured swagger, completely unaware that today would mark the beginning of his comeuppance. "Jordan!" His overly confident voice almost bounced back at me, dripping with the syrupy sweetness of someone who thought they could charm the moon itself. "I see you've gathered some of the neighborhood for a little get-together." How quaint. I could feel my temper sparking like misfired fireworks. "How quaint," I echoed incredulously, my voice pitched high, a mixture of disbelief and boiling indignation. "You mean, how criminal? How disgusting? We have a lovely assortment of nuclear waste sprouting in our backyard thanks to your lies. But hey, enjoy the welcome party." My tone was sharper than a chef's knife, and the community murmured with me. their resolve strengthening, like the electric hum before a storm. Victor faltered, just for a blink, and in that moment of unstable arrogance, we could do nothing but stare back, a united front of exasperated homeowners. While he attempted to lean into his charismatic demeanor, the smirk began to fade around the edges as I surged forward, empowered by the passion radiating from my neighbors. You sold us a lie, Victor Reynolds. And today, we won't let your charming facade hide all that radioactive waste you thought you could bury under your zippy sales pitches. So, are you ready to explain yourself? The chorus of agreement erupted from the crowd, and it felt as if the very ground beneath us quaked in anticipation of the cosmic showdown. He was poised to argue, but the gauntlet had been thrown down, and I could feel the delicious taste of karmic justice sizzling just out of reach. What magnificent madness would unfold next in this bubbling cauldron of chaos? For a terrible moment, Victor met my gaze with those steel-gray eyes, and it was painfully clear. He didn't see a group of disturbed homeowners wielding signs in righteous fury. He saw a horde of ants scurrying around his well-polished shoe. It was almost impressive how the man could wear an expression that combined condescension and concern, like a doctor reassuring a patient that their terminal illness was all in their head. Jordan, my dear, he began, condescending syllables sliding casually off his tongue. Surely we can discuss this in a more civilized manner. His disappointment was palpable, as though it hurt his refined sensibilities to bark orders to angry mobsters, rather than to commend them on their ability to bond over a collective grievance. Sure, Victor, let's be civilized while I freely contemplate whether your tailored suit is entirely fabricated from the very properties polluting my backyard. But oh, the sheer audacity of him. My neighbors shifted on their feet, radiating an electrifying mix of terror and anticipation, akin to a game show audience on the edge of their seats, unsure whether the contestant would win a brand new car or a one-way ticket to the ironically haunted graveyard of financial sins. My voice crackled with disbelief, as I couldn't help but pile on the sarcasm. More civilized, you say? I marveled, my tone reminiscent of a loudmouth gossip. Shall we don our fanciest hats and sip tea while we discuss your spoils of deception, with the lovely glow of uranium shimmering nearby? How can we ever put a price tag on this nice little capitalist scheme you've orchestrated inside a backfiring homeownership nightmare? The incredulous laughter bubbling amid the crowd felt like the warm reinforcement of a friend tapping you on the shoulder before a test. I had their full attention, ready to watch this smug banker bluster in his tailored silk noose. Victor's charm was unraveling right before our eyes. That sugary confidence turned to discomfort as I noticed the tightening of his jaw. You're really overreacting, my dear, he countered, feigning indifference. Just a little waste, hardly anything to worry about. We live in a world with much worse things, don't we? My brain nearly exploded at the utter lack of self-awareness. A little waste? A werewolf leaping into our backyard would be more welcome than a toxic mess, molded into the innocent guise of a bunch of shady paperwork. Pardon me, I shot back incredulously. Is radioactive waste the new tamale you're peddling at brunch, while offering a side of, don't give a damn about the consequences? Laughter echoed again, emboldening me. Sam jumped in, firing up the crowd with a raucous cheer. Vicarious Victor, playing Monopoly with our lives as if it were a joke. The audacity, the gall of Victor Reynolds. Weirdly, I felt a rush of nostalgia for high school theater as people began yelling out tidbits of our misfortunes, reminiscent of the old cough syrup. He sold me a house of horrors, screamed one neighbor, fists shaking defiantly in the air. My yard smells like burnt plastic, shouted another. Suddenly, the throng erupted into a cathartic melee of grievances, each sharing their personal stories of betrayal in a chorus that could have melted ice caps. I reveled in this unified uprising fueled by indignation. It felt like sensitivity training gone off the rails yet liberating all at once, collectively exercising every ounce of villainy Victor had slipped through our doors. Victor began squirming, his bravado faltering as my inner drama queen concocted a vision of him reduced to a withering houseplant under the harsh fluorescent lights of our neighborhood meeting. Let's get real, people, I roared. We're living a sitcom episode gone wrong. It's Green Acres meets eerie nuclear dilemma. And he thinks we'll sit here quietly fiddling our thumbs while he blows smoke in our faces with his charms, and bats away the evidence like pesky mosquitoes. I leaned further into theatricality, hyperventilating my charms into the atmosphere. What else could he possibly offer us? A free souvenir bottle of nuclear goo? An exclusive membership to the Hey, Let's Pretend Everything's Fine club? The crowd howled with laughter, energized by my over-the-top delivery. Because after all, if we couldn't laugh at the surreal absurdity unraveling before us, what were we doing here at all? Suddenly, though, I recalled why I had leapt into this chaotic awakening. There was a real-world consequence behind this theatrical extravaganza, and I was juggling not just my own drama, but a shared fight for justice. Taking a deep breath, I summoned the seriousness I'd shoved aside. We're not just battling corporate greed wrapped up in pretty ties and professional smiles. I reminded them, my voice steadier now. We're fighting for our families, our fragile ecosystem, our futures. Victor Reynolds thought he could slip beneath our defenses, leave behind his mess, and profit while we scrapped for answers buried beneath lies, shaped by glossy brochures. No, we're here to push for change and expose every laughable moment of it. As the crowd rallied behind my declaration with booming applause and whistles, I swiveled back to Victor, whose face was now devoid of its previous confidence. "So, fancy pants," I said, projecting my voice as if I were the lead in a Broadway show. "What are you going to do about it? Charm us back into accepting your shoddy craftsmanship and betrayal? Or are you finally ready to give us the truth wrapped in a bow of accountability?" The tension crescendoed, and with onlookers standing tall and fierce behind me, I wondered, would this be the moment that transformed our pitiful plight into triumphant justice, or merely a comical spectacle worth posting on the neighborhood social media page? Was the pivotal moment of karmic retribution about to unfold in our little corner of exasperation? The tension was so thick that it could have been sliced with a bread knife, preferably one from a fancy gourmet kitchen that Victor surely owned. His smooth, unbothered demeanor melted away like butter on hot toast, leaving behind a sweaty mask of abject horror, an absolute feast for my entertainment. The townsfolk around me buzzed with anticipation, their voices a muddled chorus of indignation and encouragement. I could see it written all over their faces. They were like children at a magic show, hearts pounding, hoping for the next grand reveal that would expose Victor as nothing but a trickster, a greedy financial magician whose next big act had the potential to collapse into chaos. "You're not going to charm your way out of this one, Silver Fox," I thought, delighting in every twitch and grimace he made as I stepped into the spotlight. Figuratively, of course, because any light that shone on Victor only amplified the shadows of his deceit. "Seriously," I continued, pacing on the makeshift stage like a captive lion pacing its cage, "you can't really expect us to accept being told to shrug off radioactive waste like it's just another pesky invoice, can you?" I pointed dramatically at the lifeless piece of paper, my radioactive report, waving it like a banner of rebellion. "This isn't just paperwork. This is our lives." The crowd erupted in collective chants of exposed and accountability. It was like being the conductor of a magnificent orchestra where the notes were pure frustration, all vying for their moment to scream out, "Hey, we know what you did." Each shout fueled my resolve, elevating my heart rate to an exhilarating beat that felt like I had just won a touchdown in the championship game, if I were actually a fan of sports, which I wasn't. But beneath the exhilaration lurked a heart-wrenching truth that was far less appealing than our comedic spectacle suggested. What if we don't win? I found myself wondering, biting my lip as a wave of uncertainty rushed over me. Sure, we had the laughter, the camaraderie, the vibrant passion buzzing like electricity in the air. But we also had a potent cocktail of destruction, buried under the facade of suburban bliss. There was an undeniable risk that this could all fizzle out like fireworks on a damp day, leaving nothing but the stench of betrayal and unhealthy amounts of radon, a ghostly whisper of dreams marred by reality. Who was I kidding? The thrill of the revolt pushed me to keep going, to pour gasoline on this reckless fire of justice, but in the quiet corners of my mind, a nagging voice questioned whether I was prepared for the backlash from this corporate titan. "Enough of this nonsense, Jordan." Victor's voice sliced through the cacophony, startling the crowd momentarily into silence. "This is absurd." He regained some semblance of composure as he bared his pristine teeth, genuine narcissism nestled beneath that polished exterior. "You really think you can bully me into taking responsibility? You have no idea the resources at my disposal." The threat hung in the air like an unwanted scent, causing several neighbors to visibly shrink back, as if he had just unleashed a cloud of toxic fumes from his tailored suit. "Resources don't intimidate us. They fuel our conviction," I countered, channeling every ounce of determination into my retort. "We're scrappy, Victor. We're the last line of defense against the tyranny of negligence and greed. Like fireflies erupting from their glowing habitat, my fellow homeowners revived their earlier fervor, a palpable energy fluttering through the air as we rallied behind our faith in one another. "He sold us a house of lies!" shouted someone in the back, and a chorus of agreement rippled through the crowd, the echoes like gunfire in a Renaissance painting when the tortured souls find their voice. I couldn't help but feel invigorated. My heart raced as I clutched my little banner of a report close to my chest, ready to use it as my shield against whatever magical incantations Victor Reynolds attempted to conjure. Was this what it felt like to be in the driver's seat as the hero of my own story? Had anyone handed out capes when I wasn't looking? My chest swelled with hope and reckless courage. In that momentum, I devised a whole new plan to turn Victor's confidence against him. I took a bold step forward, leaning in over the microphone as if I was about to share a town secret, though no one had ever been more deserving of a reveal than the man with false promises embroidered across his calamitous heart. "You think we won't fight back? You think your resources will dazzle us into surrender? What you underestimate is the sheer strength of a community united." I paused for dramatic effect, the crowd hanging on my every word like a soap opera cliffhanger, waiting to see if the villain would be thwarted or remain a formidable force, all while cackling at the absurdity of it all. "The only thing radioactive around here is your attempt to sidestep accountability." With every word, I felt a spark of victory igniting, the crowd screaming my name, mystical chants binding us together in rebellion, making me, of all people, the unexpected champion of the moment. And just when I thought we were at our peak, Victor's eyes darted around nervously, and I could see the cracks forming in his polished facade, the complacency slowly morphing into fear. Something crackled in the air, a prelude to the delicious, inevitable collapse of his meticulously crafted persona. "Jordan, enough of this. Obviously, I can't reason with you, but you'll regret this," he managed, a low growl veiling the smoothness from earlier. Enough of this? There was no stopping the tidal wave of community outrage now. Regret? I don't regret fighting for my home, my community, my sanity. With a flourish, I dared to zone in on his frayed confidence. "The only thing I'm regretting is taking so long to awaken this dormant beast of integrity within us." Time seemed to slow as every soul in that room unified in purpose, ready to ignite a reality check that would undoubtedly spell disaster for the likes of Victor Reynolds. With the unmistakable momentum of community-sourced power behind me, the stakes had risen, and the question on everyone's lips was not if we would win, but how gloriously our uprising would echo through the annals of local history. What would happen when the cancer of capitalism faced its reckoning? The drama was about to fester into some truly outrageous karma. The crowd erupted like a shaken soda can, voices blending into a cacophony of righteous indignation. But amidst the roaring applause and cheers, my heart thudded as I realized we were not just staging a protest, we were igniting a revolution. Fueled by the palpable energy surging through the air, I took a moment to soak in the absurdity of it all. Who would have thought that my backyard would become a battleground over nuclear contamination? Maybe next week we could host a potluck and call it Radiation Revelry or Toxic Tacos Tuesday. The joke practically wrote itself, but deep down, I was still aware that this was no laughing matter. Lives were at stake, and Victor's once polished armor was beginning to show signs of rust beneath the pressure of scrutiny. I could see sweat pooling by his temples, glistening like diamonds of desperation. Sweet, sweet karma. With every ounce of courage swelling inside me like a balloon about to pop, I stepped further into the fray, channeling my inner hero, or maybe just the overzealous main character in a bad sitcom. The truth, dear friends, is this. We're not merely victims of Victor's scheming. We're warriors of transparency. The audience gasped, then erupted in applause with a fervor that made my heart race. It was captivating to witness, a pulse of steely determination coursing through folks I barely knew, soon to be my greatest allies in this quest for justice. We've got to ensure our voices not only echo here, but reverberate through every corner of this community and beyond. The stakes were soaring, and so was my ambition. With each rallying cry, the specter of Victor loomed larger in my mind, morphing into a sinister caricature of avarice and unaccountability, a man who clutched his wealth as closely as a toddler clings to a favorite stuffed animal. I could practically smell the impending victory on the horizon, but as the enthusiasm reached a feverish pitch, a lingering doubt knocked discreetly at the back of my mind, whispering, "What's your plan, Jordan? Just shouting won't uncover the buried truths." I swallowed hard, feeling the urgency of the moment seep into my veins like caffeine at dawn. If we were going to maintain this momentum, we needed something tangible, hard evidence to solidify our claims, and serve Victor a hot slice of karmic retribution right in the face. Where was that pesky scientist with the data? My thoughts flitted like moths to a flame, landing on Sam. He was standing toward the back, blending in with the crowd like a dash of color in a black and white film. Eyebrows, furrowed in determination. I caught his eye and motioned for him to meet me. "I'll be back," I shouted over the din, channeling a dramatic exit worthy of a blockbuster movie. Wading through the fraying enthusiasm of the crowd, I arrived at Sam's side, fueled by a single thought burning in my mind. We need to go nuclear on their nuclear. I have contacts, scientists who can help get more information, real data that'll make this a no-brainer. Sam's eyes glimmered with vibrant energy, reflecting the chaos around us. Forget waiting for an invitation to the party. We're throwing the bash ourselves. Victor's lies are about to unravel like an overcooked spaghetti noodle. I could almost taste the vibrant anticipation hanging between us like fruit on a vine, ripe for picking. We hurriedly strategized, while Victor's squawking fell into a muffled, distant roar, briefly losing the battle while we coaxed crucial information from quick-witted, equally enraged neighbors who had been all too impacted by Victor's negligence. Our plan felt like a race against time, with every tick of the clock urging us closer to the brink of victory. As I was preparing to emerge back onto the stage with Sam in tow, an idea sparked. What if we turned our plight into a genuine community event? A summit of sorts? The UN Conference on Underground Nuclear Waste. The thought almost burst out of me in mania. It was perfect. This could be the rallying point to come together for a more pressing cause, safety and accountability. I, brimming with excitement, pushed through the sea of our growing supporters, rallying them with grand gestures. Let's gather our findings, compile strategic action plans, and meet with state officials. No more living in oblivion while Victor flits about like a corporate butterfly. As I wrapped up my passionate pitch, the crowd surged with an affirmative yes, clapping their hands like in an ancient rites of passage, solidifying the momentum around our newfound mission. The palpable energy surged again and something primal shifted in the air. It's time to turn our voices into instruments powerful enough to cut through Victor Reynolds' fog of deception, I declared, my tone fighting to leap higher above the din, my ambition morphing into an unyielding directive. The elation felt intoxicating, but I also knew that the stakes had shifted. The laughter, the unity, all of it was bound to face scrutiny once we dug deeper into the rabbit hole. And with each passing moment, the sense of adventure thickened, the palpable taste of resolution sweet enough to transcend any fear that crawled at the back of my mind. What would it take to unveil the truth beneath all of Victor's smoke and mirrors? What more explosive secrets lay rotting in our suburban soil? The energy of the crowd crackled in the air, a raw and palpable force that seemed to electrify the very ground beneath us. I felt like a performer at the grandest Broadway debut. The spotlight switched to me with a flourish. And oh, was I ready to sing? Ladies and gentlemen, I boomed, my heart racing like the bass in a club. Welcome to the unveiling of our truth. The UN Conference on Underground Nuclear Waste is your new ticket to change. The crowd erupted in applause as I waved my arms dramatically, channeling every over-the-top movie star I could think of. Little did they know, however, that my victory dance was simply the warm-up act for the show-stopping number we were about to unleash upon Victor Reynolds and his shady real estate antics. Just as I was reveling in my charismatic surge of confidence, Sam leaned in, his brow furrowed with a mixture of excitement and concern. "Jordan, that sounds great, but we need more than just a catchy name to save our community. We need solid data, actual evidence." His practical enthusiasm grounded me, causing a whirlwind of ideas to swirl in my mind rather rapidly. "You're right, of course," I exclaimed, practically bouncing on my toes. "We need to rally our troops. Organize a team of local activists, parents, and concerned citizens who might have insights or resources we can tap into. This is about forging alliances and assembling an army of truth seekers." The thunderous applause from the crowd surged again, their willingness to swim into the depths of this absurdity reinforcing my resolve. Was I the fearless captain of an intrepid ship sailing into the storm, or a clueless sailor lost at sea? The wheels of my mind were spinning so fast I could almost hear the gears grinding. I turned to Sam and dramatically declared, "We will reach out to environmental engineers, community leaders, and maybe even gasp local news outlets. Imagine our home meticulously scrutinized for every atom of wrongdoing, while the infamous Victor Reynolds stares at us from his trusty corner office like a raccoon caught in the headlights. My voice crescendoed into a crescendo of mirth, the image of that smug banker losing his composure sending delightful chills down my spine. Let's get our facts straight. I want to uncover every nasty little detail from the nuclear past that has been buried right under our feet. I felt like a gladiator about to charge into the arena, both terrified and exhilarated. The stakes were high, and the soft sound of laughter from the crowd nestled against the tension in the air. Sam nodded, a glimmer of excitement sparkling in his eyes. I know just the person to contact. She's an environmental scientist named Linda, and you wouldn't believe how passionate she is. Like, she wakes up every day as if she's about to fight a villain in a comic book. Pretty sure she could turn this whole toxic charade upside down in a hot second. The thrill of a real plan ignited again, propelling us forward as I could already envision our next gathering being a pivotal spectacle. We needed to meme our suffering into something revolutionary, capture the hearts of the audience, and perhaps inspire deeper community awareness. Let's give them a show worth hashtagging. Justice and nukes or clean sweep. Something catchy and unforgettable. I raved, feeling the universe aligning with our favorable views and wild fantasies. Days flew by in a dizzying whirl of activity and anticipation. We flung ourselves headlong down the rabbit hole of discovery, delving into copious amounts of research, busily plotting every ounce of data that seemed remotely relevant, like treasure hunters with shovels in hand. Linda, the fiery scientist who had quickly become our ally, was a whirlwind of confidence and charisma herself. She came armed with insights that felt like holy relics for any environmental detective, a stack of reports that painted a harrowing picture of neglect and mismanagement, metered out by none other than our former well-coiffed friend Victor. "This," she remarked, thrusting a paper copy of the reports into my hands, "is the nuclear cherry on top of the disaster Sunday Victor's serving in your yard." The way she punctuated that nuclear with cadence sent waves of glee through my veins. A meeting was swiftly organized, and much to everyone's surprise, our proposed unconference on underground nuclear waste gained traction as neighbors who initially felt helpless now flowed in with enthusiasm. As we gathered in the local community center, the buzz thickened the air like humidity before a storm. I stood at the front of a packed room, every seat filled, eyes wide with anticipation and support. "Ladies and gentlemen," I called, my heart thudding like a drum at a concert. "Today marks the beginning of our transformation from passive observers to proactive visionaries. No longer shall we cower in the shadows of deceit. Today we reclaim our narrative." The air vibrated with thunderous applause as permission finally washed over us, each person owning a piece of our deserved victory inching closer to reality like the sun creeping over the horizon. With each passionate voice echoing through the hall, I felt the thrilling tingles of hope, tiny sparks flickering into a blazing bonfire that would soon illuminate fighting spirit. Sam shot me a proud nod as Linda shared concrete facts about radiation levels that sent gasps echoing through the audience. We're armed to the teeth with knowledge, but knowledge without action is merely a fleeting glimpse into the possible, she urged, instigating agreement all around. A wave of laughter broke out when a neighbor quipped, "If Victor thinks he can dance away from this, he's about to be tangoed into an inquisition." The levity amidst the chaos was revitalizing. Each chuckle was emboldened, and my heart soared. We were burgeoning into warriors of reclamation, readying ourselves to unhinge the confines of deceit. How could we ensure our neighbors understood the urgency of our mission before Victor slipped through our fingers like a diabolical magician disappearing amidst his stage smoke? In that moment, united under a common banner of truth and accountability, I knew one thing for certain. Victor's days were numbered, and his so-called wealth would soon feel like toy money against the crushing weight of community outrage. What delightful repercussions awaited, I wondered, in this uproar of revelations. The day of reckoning had arrived, and the courthouse loomed large like a fortress designed to uphold the unjust. As I approached, my heart race charged like a roller coaster, all revved up for the first drop. I glanced nervously at Sam beside me. His easygoing demeanor was a refreshing contrast to the high-voltage energy zapping around me. "This is it, Jordan. Remember to stick to the facts and throw in that sass for good measure." His confidence was infectious, propelling me forward like I was about to step into the ultimate duel against my adversary, Victor. The air crackled with a mix of desperation and hope as we stepped inside, greeted by the steady buzz of murmurs from a captivated audience, our neighbors brimming with anticipation and solidarity. As I took my place in the witness stand, the reality of the moment engulfed me. How had I ended up here, staring at Victor, who now wore an expression that could only be described as, "You never saw this coming." It was righteous fury bubbling beneath the surface as I remembered all those sleepless nights spent tackling reports, rallying our neighbors, and organizing our campaign. The judge presided with an inscrutable glance, ready to hear our story unfold. "Jordan Ellis," she prompted, and the room grew silent as I summoned every shred of courage nestled inside me. I hadn't been selected for a talent show or anything else so trivial. No, this was life or nuclear death. Gather round, dear folks, because this is where our collective anger takes center stage, I proclaimed, my voice steadying as I began to weave the tale of deceit and betrayal that marred my newly claimed patch of paradise. Would it be worth the grand show? Every word I spoke felt electric, like tiny lightning bolts igniting the room. I recounted my glorious discovery, digging a hole for a prospective vegetable garden only to unearth a stash of distressing containers without labels or explanations. Honestly, Victor, how could you let this happen? Like, did you expect us to believe it was just some old lawn chairs buried for the sake of nostalgia? I leaned dramatically forward,